Hello, my name is Roisin and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing the mid-year freakout tag. I love these quarterly check-ins. I really appreciate the way they let you look back at the time of the year. I know that this probably seems like a bit of a delayed mid-year freakout tag. I think most other people's are already up, but I don't feel comfortable talking about mid-year until I've actually experienced the first 6 months of the year. It's like some people do their favourite books of the year in December, and I'm like, what about the ones you read at the end of December? If I'm talking about the first half of the year, that first half needs to have already happened. That's just my personal philosophy, as much as you can have a personal philosophy about tag videos. So the first question is the best book you've read so far in 2022. I did a best books of 2022 so far video, which I will leave linked in the cards above if you would like to check it out. I purposefully did that first so I wouldn't be spoiling the video in this video. The only book that I have yet given 5 stars this year, and I don't always give stars, and I don't give stars in my reviews, I find them fairly arbitrary, but my emotions led me to give this one 5 stars as soon as I'd finished reading it, and that is Honorifics by Cynthia Miller. This is a collection of poetry about family and being an immigrant, child of immigrants, about Cynthia Miller's Chinese-Malaysian family and her experience of that culture and of the relationships between people and how it relates to that culture and of being a third culture child. I just thought it was incredibly beautiful and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really poignant without being over the top. I felt like it was very accessible without being too simplistic. It was exactly the level of poetry that I like. I really found it approachable, so I really appreciated that, and it's the only book that I have felt confident to say that I give 5 stars to. Question number 2 is the best sequel that you've read so far in 2022, and I think I've only read one sequel, aside from when I was reading my childhood favourite historical fiction series, which I'll leave linked in the cards above, but I'm not going to count those. The best sequel, and the only other sequel that I have read, is Hollowpox, the something of Morrigan Crow. God, what's the Hunt for Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend, and this is the 3rd book in the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend, which is a middle grade series that I have really enjoyed. I think everyone who reads that kind of 8 to 12 age group books on BookTube loves this series, and they are really brilliant, really whimsical and really warm, and what I really appreciated, I don't want to spoil the first 2 books in the series by telling you the plot of the 3rd book, but what I did appreciate about it was that it started to question the society and the structures in which Morrigan Crow lives. It started to sort of peel back the layers of this society and question the unfairness or the fairness, the things that have been put in place. It started to kind of reveal them and explore those ideas, which I thought was really well done, because a lot of other children's books kind of just say, this is the world, these are the good people, these are the bad people. And I think that I liked that nuance that it was bringing, and that it wasn't afraid to go there in a children's book. Now, I'm assuming that these books are going to get a bit progressively darker and more mature, because our main character Morrigan is growing up. So I think she was 11 in the first one, 12 and then 13. So she's getting into a bit more of that kind of age. So we'll see how it goes, what the direction it takes in the next book. Silver Mist? Silverborn? Something silver, that is coming out this year, so I'll be looking forward to listening to that on audiobook, which is how I've read all of these books. Number 3 is new release you haven't read yet but want to, and I've got a stack here of some of the proofs that I have got for this year. This is Scary Monsters by Michelle de Krester, and this is a book that can be read from this direction or this direction, and they tell different parts of the same story, and Michelle de Krester is a Sri Lankan Australian writer, and I believe this book deals with immigration in Sri Lanka, in Australia, and it came out the very beginning of January and I still haven't read it yet. Bear Woman by Karolina Ramqvist, and this is a kind of mix of historical fiction and autofiction. Defying definition, it says on the back, autofiction by Sweden's answer to Deborah Levy. And this is about a woman who is left abandoned on an island in 1542 and a woman who researches a woman left on an island who is Karolina Ramqvist. So I'm really intrigued by that. As you may know, I love books set in isolated places. I will leave my video about that linked in the cards above. And this one has been translated from the Swedish by Saskia Vogel, and it came out on the 3rd of February. I should have read this when I was reading writers from Northern Europe, but I forgot I had it, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, this is kind of seems really intriguing and interesting. One that's my kind of brand of magical realist historical fiction, and hopefully it will be the right side of that and not the side that I dislike. This is The Gifts by Liz Hyder, and this is about a woman who comes out of a river and she has wings, and then there is a man who's trying to take her rings from her. Wings, not rings, wings. One problem with proofs is they don't have blurbs, so it's hard to tell you what it's about when I can't quite remember. But yeah, it's set in 1840. I remember being really drawn to it because it reminded me of Nights at the Circus by Angela Carter, which is a book that I really loved about a woman who has wings. But this one does have a quote on the front from Stacey Halls, and not a huge fan of Stacey Halls myself, so we'll see which side it falls on. And then the final one I have is Belle Green by Alexandra Lapierre, and this one is translated from the French. Came out on the 16th of June, so this is the most recent one that I still haven't read, and this is about Belle de Costa Green, who was the personal librarian for JP Morgan. And when I was reading the Goodreads historical fiction best books of the year last year, there was a book about Belle de Costa Green on that shortlist, the 10 books, and I read that. I will leave it linked in the cards above, and I really didn't like it, so I'm excited to see that story that had so much promise done in a different way. So yeah, Belle de Costa Green was a light-skinned black woman who was the daughter of one of the first black men to become a professor at Harvard, and who was a civil rights activist in the early 20th century, and she passes for white in order to work for JP Morgan. So yeah, those are some of the books that have come out already, about which I am excited. Okay, number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and I've got 2 here. I haven't properly done all my research into what's coming out in the second half of the year. I have a video, again linked in the cards, of books coming out in June, July and August, if you want to go and check that out, but I haven't yet done September, October, November or December, so there are lots that I'm not sure that's coming out. But 2 that I did see is Liberation Day by George Saunders, which is his first collection of short stories in 10 years. And although I've never actually read George Saunders' short stories, I absolutely loved Lincoln in the Bardo, which was his novel, which won the book prize and is one of my favourite books of all time. A wonderful, weird book, and I've been getting more into short stories since I read that novel. So I'm excited to read some of his short stories, since he's like the American master of short stories. And then the other one is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. The only Maggie O'Farrell I've read is Hamnet, and I liked it, but I didn't absolutely love it. But this is also historical fiction, and it is set in Italy in the Renaissance period, about the de Medicis, and I love the Medicis. That's one of my areas of special interest. When I was 9, 10, 11, I was obsessed with the Medicis, so I think I would like to read Maggie O'Farrell's take on that family. Number 5 is the biggest disappointment that you've read this year, and I've had a few. Like I said at the beginning, I've had a bit of a weird reading year where I haven't been loving books as much as I would like to. So there have been several books that I've been looking forward to that haven't quite lived up to what I wanted from them. But I would say probably the ones that really didn't work for me were The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. One of the reasons this was so disappointing was because it was so well hyped here on BookTube. Lots of people really loved that book, and I couldn't get on board with it at all. I found it very sanctimonious. I found it very obvious and heavy-handed. I found the metaphors and similes to be silly and draining to read, and I found the characters unconvincing and the dialogue slightly ridiculous. So I really didn't enjoy that book, and I had really been hoping to. I thought going into it that it might be one of my favourites on the Women's Prize shortlist, and it ended up being my least favourite of the 6. Another one that would be disappointing would be Ghost in the Throat by Doireann and Ghriofa, which I read during the Irish Readathon. I had bought this at Foyles when it was the non-fiction book of the year. I had thought I would really love it. It's about a woman who is a poet, an Irish poet, and she's researching, becoming obsessed with this 17th century Irish poet, looking into her history. I thought the historical part of it was very under-researched, and I thought that it was so focused on motherhood and biological determinism, and I just didn't get on board. And then another one would be, the other one would be all of the Greek myth retellings that I've read so far this year. Silence of the Girls I liked the most out of all the ones I read, but Ariadne, The Song of Achilles, I had owned that for almost a decade and been meaning to read it, and everyone raves about it so much. And I have a classics degree, so I'm like, oh, I should be getting on with these Greek myth retellings, and I really don't like any of them so far. So, and Ariadne, I would say, was probably my least favourite of all of those as well. Biggest surprise? The biggest surprise for me this year has been how much I've loved weird, very dark books. I have spent most of my time, if someone says, oh, this is quite dark, so you might want to avoid it if you don't like reading about difficult subject matter, I've spent most of my life avoiding reading those because I thought of myself as a sensitive little bean. And it turns out, not so sensitive as I thought. I love these dark, weird books. And the one that encapsulate that the most is The Discomfort of Evening. One of my favourite books of the year, it was in my top 10 books of the year so far, a book about a girl whose brother dies in a ice skating accident in this very religious community in the Netherlands, and it involves animal torture and sexual abuse. And it is really difficult and dark to read, but so wonderfully atmospheric, and wonderful sounds like the wrong word, but so brilliantly atmospheric and so wholly encapsulating. You get drawn into the psychology of the book, and I just thought it was absolutely wonderful. But yeah, weird, dark little books seem to be my new thing this year. Forget the lyrical, beautiful historical fiction. I want weird, dark, contemporary books. I've completely changed. Favourite new author, debut or new to you? All of mine are new to me, but not new authors by any stretch of the imagination. Colm Toibin. I read The Magician by Colm Toibin, and I thought that his writing was just magical. Absolutely brilliant at bringing characters to life, really humorous, compelling to read, a book where there's not a huge amount of plot. I just found it wonderful, particularly his characters, particularly the humour. I really love that, so I definitely think I will be reading more Colm Toibin. Then Han Kang is another one. I read The Vegetarian this year, another dark, weird little contemporary book. Absolutely loved it. Definitely need to read more Han Kang. And Louise Erdrich. I read The Sentence this year. Not so dark and weird, but just so warm and wonderful and clever. Yeah, I really, really love the way that she writes and the way that she tells a story. And I think I need to read more of her books, which is a good thing because she has written very, very many. Question is newest fictional crush. I don't often have an answer to this because I don't read books where you like the characters a lot of the time, or books where the characters are particularly important. They're often representations of different psychologies rather than people. And also, yeah, I don't have one at all this year. I think I've managed to find some in the past, but I think that this year that hasn't happened. I haven't been reading any romance this year. I did read the new Valerie McFarlane, didn't love it. I can't even remember what those characters were like, so who knows. And yeah, I don't really have any fictional crushes. Newest favourite character, that one I do have, and I would say Tookie from The Sentence. I loved her in all her flaws. She was just so warm and vulnerable and honest and working on herself. I thought she was so admirable, and I just really loved the story of that one. So yeah, I looked through all of the books, and again, not a great many books with likeable characters on my list, but this one had one and I really enjoyed it. Number 10 is books that made you cry, and I don't think, I can't remember having cried at a book so far this year. I would say that there was a vlog where I read classics, which I'll leave in the cards above, where I read I Know Where the Cage Bird Sings and The Bell Jar in one vlog because I apparently wanted to hurt myself. And I enjoyed both of those books, although no one had warned me before that The Bell Jar is incredibly racist, but I found that out for myself. But I definitely felt emotional in both of those. Maya Angelou is an incredibly beautiful writer, as everyone knows, and I felt for her the descriptions of women's mental health asylums in The Bell Jar, something else, and I enjoyed that. So yeah, I didn't cry, but I definitely felt something in relation to those books. Number 11 is a book that made you happy, and I think that for that I'm gonna have to say Hollowpox again. It's the most cheerful book that I've read this year, and it's quite dark compared to the other two, but it's still, middle grade. It's still cozy and warm. I would also say Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, because of the beautiful nature writing and because of the wry storytelling. I really enjoyed her voice. I listened to the audiobook of that and I felt it was, even though it's talking about climate disaster, I found it quite a approachable, nice, loving way to talk about that. Number 12 is most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. I'm not sure. I haven't bought that many books. I never really do. I use my library a lot. And I don't have any of them still with me. And often when you receive proofs, they look like this, so not that beautiful. You know what, I would say I quite like this cover of Love in the Big City by Sang-Young Park. Can you see that instead of my face? I think that this is quite a striking image. Haven't read this yet, but I enjoyed it. Oh, actually, and Winter in Sokcho by Elisa Chua Dusapin. I really love this. I mean, the book is read this way, but I really love the like retro postcard look of this, and I love that pink. It's a really lovely colour. So yeah, I think this one's, I really like the style of this one. Both Korean books, actually, interestingly enough. Maybe they just have more style. And then the final one is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I set myself like 2 challenges. I turned 30 in October, as you may be aware. I've not really shut up about it. And I set myself the challenge to read 30 classics before I'm 30. I think I'm on 12. And also to read 30 books from my shelves before I'm 30. I'm not sure how many of those I've read either. So I think if you put those together, it's like 27 books I need to read before October. September, 3 months. I can go into October because my birthday's not the 1st. But yeah, that's quite a lot of books that I've set myself. So we have various classics up here. Black and British was definitely on my list and I haven't read that yet. Maximum City by Sekatu Mehta. The Aeneid, the Shadi Barsh translation of the Aeneid was definitely on my list. The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, which is up there, Japanese classic. There's Bonfire of the Vanities, I'd lost that. Reuben Sachs, that was one. No, don't remember any of the others, although I do think I need to read Lean Falls Stand by John McGregor because my friend Amy has been telling me to read it for like a year now, so I should probably get on reading that one as well. Yeah, so I've got quite a lot to be getting on with. I'm actually considering spending the whole of August reading classics, just to see how many I can fit in. If you'd be interested in seeing a vlog where I only read as many classics as possible, let me know in the comments down below. I don't know how many I can fit in because some of the ones that I've pledged myself to read are like 900 pages, like Middlemarch, which is maybe not the best idea, but there you go. So those were all the questions for the mid-year freak-out tag. I will leave the questions in the description. If you want to do this video yourself, consider yourself tagged. I'm sure everyone that I know on BookTube has done the video already. I'm very behind on watching videos, so I can't actually say if they are. And if you want to answer the questions in my comments, I would love to hear from you. I will put some other videos here. Some of the videos I mentioned earlier, I will put them here if you want to click through or watch some reading vlogs. And I will see you again very soon. I put out new videos twice a week, so remember to like this video, subscribe if you aren't already, and I will see you again very soon. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.